Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Slappin Kpop podcast. I am Kayla, and with me today is Sammi.
Hello.
And the two of us are here to do another installment of the complete history of. And as we had said in the unique episode, this is meant to be a series to cover sort of the more underrated unknown groups who have kind of a sad history.
An interesting story.
Yeah.
An interesting story to tell that kind of gets forgotten buried by the big groups.
Yes. And so today we are going to talk about KNK, which is personally one of my favorite underrated groups that are still alive and existing in the K-pop realm. And they're also having a comeback before the end of the year, supposedly. So we thought this would be a good time to talk about them.
Yep, and look, Unique was a very weird episode because they're all doing better.
Yes.
So this will be I think Unique will be our happiest episode, maybe.
Probably.
The rest of these are going to be a little sad.
They're really sad. This one is not as sad as some of the other groups we were planning to talk about, but still not very happy.
Not great.
Yeah. So there's a lot of pre-debut stuff to go over with KNK because they did a lot of pretty notable things pre-debut. So, to start off, KNK, a 5-member group. First off, In-sung, one of the members. So he was a big hit trainee, as well as Sang-joon. And both of them trained with BTS while they were still trainees at Big Hit. And then In-sung then moved to FNC, where Hee-joon, another one of the members, was at. And In-sung trained with what would be SF9. And so the two of them were both very good friends with SF9. And then the In-sung and Sang-joon, both very good friends with BTS still. And then Hee-joon, who was at FNC already, he was in a prototype version of what Honeyest would be in the future. Because he was in the band part of their trainee section of FNC, where In-sung was in the actual idol group section.
But he wasn't in band versus...
No,
dance?
he was...
Dance versus band? Whatever that
Dance
was.
versus band, yeah. So he was out of FNC by the time Dance versus Band aired. But...
Oh, by the way, everybody, this is also going to be my education, because I like KNK, but this is essentially story time with Kayla.
Yes, because I love them. So I know, more about them than probably anyone should, so... So yes, because Hee-joon and In-sung were both at FNC, both of them were on this FNC variety show called Cheondamdong 111. It's a very interesting show. It's kind of like a mockumentary thing. It just shows off what CN Blue, FT Island, AOA were all doing at the company, plus N-Flying, who were right about to debut at that time. And then it also did a lot of things with the trainees at the company at the time. So there's pre-debut SF9 is in there, Rowoon and Zuho are both in there. And then Hee-joon and In-sung are both in that show. Hee-joon is with the band unit, and then In-sung does a lot of stuff with Rowoon, interestingly enough, because those are the two idol trainees that they sort of picked out to showcase in the show. And so the two of them do a lot of stuff in that show. Also in that show was the new bassist of N-Flying, Dongsung, who was in Honeyest. But that was in N-Flying.
FNC went through a lot of... Yeah, FNC just reshuffled their group so much.
There's a lot of that happening at FNC.
Just reshuffle. You have so many bands. Bands replace members all the time. Just sort of between that, CN Blue, and FT Island, you're just sort of seeing members just sort of shift around.
Oh, yeah. Two of the members in N-Flying were supposed to be in CN Blue and then got kicked out last minute. So it's a whole bunch of stuff happens there. And then to move on to Sang-joon. So Sang-joon was at Big Hit for a while with In-sung, where they trained with BTS, and then Sang-joon moved to JYP at some point, where he trained with GOT7. And he's apparently friends with Jackson because he was on a variety show where Jackson was also on, and they seem to know each other and be friends, which is interesting. Gyujin was at TS Entertainment, where he trained with BAP. And so it's like all of them were
all of the weird thing is all of the notable groups from recently.
Yeah.
All notable boy groups for their time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just have KNK sort of floating around.
Oh, yes.
In the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And that really just shows a lot of, like, the idol trainee system where it's like, if you, like, what would have happened if they stayed? Would they have been in BTS? Who knows?
Who knows? Honestly.
Who knows?
Who knows?
That's the weird thing with, like, idol trainees. You're like, if it was everything was a little bit different, who knows where everybody would be? And then you just have, like, the sad groups of, like, trainees that kind of just go around and then end up in, like, a less popular group.
Yeah.
And they're just sad.
A lot of people
their friends ascend.
A lot of trainees do, like, company jumping, like, pretty often. And that's just, like, something that happens a lot. And it's a lot of people jump from, like, bigger companies to smaller companies, too.
Because, again, the thing is they just want to debut, and then you're not sure, like, if a bigger company's gonna even debut you, much less anything else. So you kind of company hop to just try to debut.
Right.
Because that's the first hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
If, for example, you company hop, and then you end up in a small company, debut, but the group that you were training with ends up debuting and are way bigger, that's a risk you're gonna take.
Mm-hmm. So Jihoon, he was apparently training in Nega Network. I have no idea what company that is.
I've never heard of these people.
I've never heard of it. I don't even think they have a K-pop group, but that was before they all came to their current company. Well, actually not their current company, but
their first company.
First company. Also, Dongwon, who was not a part of the initial debut lineup, but joined the group later. He was also a trainee at FNC with Unsong and Heejun, and apparently stayed really close friends with, like, all of the members of KNK, which is why I think they pulled him in to be in the group after they lost their other member.
Nega Network had Laboom.
Oh, okay.
Or has Laboom.
They have Laboom. Okay.
And they had Brown Eyed Girls from 2006 to 2015.
Oh, okay.
And they had Sunny Hill.
Okay. That's so, like more groups than I thought.
Yeah, I just Googled them. So, sorry, Nega Network, we didn't realize.
Nope. Did not know. But granted, those are not incredibly notable groups to begin with.
Brown Eyed Girls.
Yeah, but Brown Eyed Girls is, like, not there anymore, so.
Nope. And also, Laboom. We like Laboom.
I do like Laboom.
That's not, like...
Not, like, a top-tier group, yeah. So after everyone went around, was out all of these companies and did shit tons of company jumping, they all ended up at YNB Entertainment at some point. And then YNB released, like, tons and tons and tons of just, like, online video content for them pre-debut, like, a video a day, or they would, like, live stream, like, every day or something. They would have some type of content out for, like, 3 whole months leading up to their debut, which was a lot. It's just a lot of content. I went back and tried to, like, look at it, and there's just a lot of stuff there. And so they
that seems overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a lot. KNK has, like, a stupid amount of, like, online, like, VLive videos, like, YouTube videos. Just, there's a whole ton of that for KNK. Like, more than I've seen for any group.
I feel like VLive has just been a very good thing for K-pop.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just, like, they can just do random live streams, and if you're into that, you can just watch so much content.
There's so much content available these days.
Much, and it's, like, so much free content
mm-hmm.
with, like, okay, there aren't necessarily subtitles on VLives, but, like, you kind of get the gist of it for the most part.
Mm-hmm. And now groups just release, like, sort of variety shows and everything through VLive and YouTube, where you would have to, like, back in the day, you would have to get a variety show, like, on, like, an actual television network to even have that kind of content.
And now you're just, like, sitting here. I get, like, updates from, like, you're getting them once a week, highly produced, with subtitles, with good subtitles.
Yeah.
Not, like fan
actually edited
subtitles.
well and everything.
Edited, and they're having fun,
mm-hmm.
and it's not, like, one of those where it's, like, the producers want you to do this hellish task.
Yeah.
It's, like, let's go have a picnic.
Right.
Let's go make some food.
There's a lot of making food
There's
variety
a lot
shows.
of making food. And
Yep.
it makes me very hungry.
Mm-hmm. So, KNK officially debuted as a 5-member boy group on March 3rd, 2016, with the song Knock and under YB Entertainment. Y&B has the group Bestie, but that's really about it. And
Yep.
so, my opinion on Y&B is, like, I consider them like a bottom feeder agency. Because what they've done with both KNK and with Bestie is they take all of these trainees who have like tons of experience training under
By the
other
way,
companies,
if
other
you don't
notable
know-
companies.
If you don't know,
Mhm.
Bestie is just members of EXID
Yeah.
that left EXID. Like, if
Mhm.
you go back to, like, EXID's debut, you'll see it's, like, a bigger group. And a couple of those members left and then
And
made
that is how Bestie was
That's
made.
how Bestie was formed. So they
Mhm.
are just taking very popular, like, not popular, because EXID at that time,
At the time
was not
wasn't
a popular,
popular.
group.
But they
But
take
they had experience.
they just take trainees who have experience in other companies and like put them together and like shove them in a group, probably because they don't have the money or the resources
Ability.
to train trainees, and so they just pick up people who are already experienced.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the other notable thing about KNK, and I don't know if you're going to touch on this later, is that they're very tall.
Oh, they're so tall. KNK is, I think, the tallest boy group.
On average.
On average. Their shortest member, I think, is 5'10". 5'11".
That was a selling...
The shortest member is
point.
5'11".
And that was a selling point when they debuted, was that they were, like, the tall idols.
Their tallest member is 6'3",
Good
and
Lord.
their shortest is 5'11". So they're very tall. And yeah, that was definitely a selling point where they were just known as like, here are the tall boys.
I remember seeing them right when they debuted, because Weekly Idol, back when Weekly Idol used to have the two hosts, but two better hosts.
And then it was like only notable groups were allowed to go on Weekly
An only
Idol.
notable group, but they would every year they'd have, or every like 6 months they would have the
rookie
Idol
episodes.
special, where I remember KNK was there with Astro and the girl group 410.
Yeah, who was just like thrown on
Who were
that
just
show
there.
for who knows why.
Who were there? But Astro standing next to KNK, because Astro does not have, like, they're not that short.
This is back when
Jinjin's
Oksana was a
little
baby.
short, but like they're not that short, but they looked like children.
Mm-hmm.
They looked like they looked like babies
Mm-hmm.
in comparison to KNK. Like KNK are just very tall,
They're very tall.
and also they're very fun on that show. If you haven't seen that, that is one of my favorite Weekly Idol episodes.
It is very fun, and I think like them and like so them and Astro both debuted in like the first couple months of 2016, and so they did a lot of variety shows together, or like music show stages or whatever stuff. They did a lot of stuff with Astro because they were the new boy groups at the time, and because there wasn't any other boy groups who had really debuted yet. And like them too, and like Victon later, who did, I think they debuted a couple months later, would do a lot of variety shows together, and I think that was really a benefit to KNK because I think their debut and like the couple of months after the debut was really their peak of a group, which is kind of sad because I feel like everything they've done past then like hasn't been as good, because I felt like with the amount of attention and the amount of shows they were going on right at their debut, it set them up to look like they had a lot of potential to like be a really big group afterwards, but then that just never happened, sadly.
And I think that happens with a lot of K-pop groups where, like, your debut will happen, and then people get excited, and then they're like, oh, I like this group, I like this. And then other people debut, and then people just get excited for that group.
Yeah.
It's really hard to sort of keep... Everyone is the new shiny thing when they debut.
2016 in particular
2016 was hard.
It was a hard year because so it was Astro, KNK, Victon, and then NCT came, and SF9 and Pentagon at the end of the year, and it was just like that's like everybody came out that year.
And then NCT just kept debuting because they kept
and then
debuting
NCT
more
debuted
units.
3 times that year.
Mark debuted 3 times.
Yeah.
Mark himself debuted 3 times.
Mm-hmm. That was it got
It was really
gradually
easy to get
harder.
lost.
And
Yeah, it was
for them
really
to be
easy
noticed
get
that
lost
year,
in there.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Because, like, the other groups that were coming out also were from more notable companies, too. And, like, Pentagon had a... Yeah, SM is just SM. And then Pentagon and SF9 both had, like, survival shows. And then Astro had a web drama.
The thing with Astro is Astro was also, no offense to everything else, but Astro at least had their unique concept where it's like all these other groups had their hardcore, except for NCT Dream. But NCT Dream was actually children at the time.
Actual children. Like 14 years old.
Like, they were babies.
Yeah.
Chewing Gum is an interesting video. I love that song, but that's a weird... Like, it's a very weird time for them. But Astro at least had their cuter concept, which made them stand out in this crowd of just very...
Very similar boy groups.
Similar concept boy groups.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was a time, and I regret it now, that Fanfare and Gorilla were very interchangeable for me.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that they were the same song for a little
SF9 and Pentagon, like, might as well have been the same group when they debuted.
Yep. And then you're looking at... Then you have Fire Truck in there, and then Knock just is kind of in the similar boy group style, where it's just like all of you are kind of the same. I'll wait a couple comebacks before I have an opinion on any of you.
Mm-hmm. I think the reason I got into KNK so much was 2016 was when I just started, like, hardcore getting into K-pop, and so I was constantly, like, actively looking to stan groups, and... KNK, I think, just debuted, like, at the right time where they were, like, a new group and they were only 5 members. And I really liked their debut. And I was like, I guess I'm gonna stan them now.
Yep. That was the year prior is when I got into K-pop, so 2015, and that's the same thing that happened with me in 17. Who is still, like, my top tier boy group for me.
Yeah, so after their debut, I feel like they just had, like, gradual decrease in popularity with every single comeback since then. They had a second comeback, their song's called Back, and then they had a third one that year that was called You. And
I love that song. I think that song.
You was almost, like, what started this, like, really bad decline, because their official music video for You could never actually get released. There was quality issues and they didn't want to release it because it was, like, I guess, shot in really bad quality. And so their music video for that song just never got released.
It's just a performance video, which I remember I was still very new into K-pop, and I had heard of, like, I was trying to keep up with all the debuts, and then KNK, I would just keep, like, seeing them and watching it, and then slowly, I liked Knock. Mm-hmm. And then slowly I go back and their videos have, like, lowered in quality. And I'm like...
It's sad.
And then You happens and it's just a performance video. And I'm like, what happened?
Yeah,
Are they okay?
I think that really, like, brought any type of, like, growing popularity to a halt with that one. Like, not actually having a music video.
And they would also take a long... Like, 3 comebacks in a year is good.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I feel like then they just started taking really long breaks.
Yes. So that's... Things started getting really, really bad after You. Because in 2017, they only had 2 comebacks, which were Rain and Sun, Moon, Star. But because I think those 2 comebacks were kind of like... It wasn't a repackage, but, like, they were, like, kind of released, like, as, like, they're meant to go together. And so they came out pretty close to each other, but, like, after Sun, Moon, and Star, there was just, like, nothing for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
It's just, so their albums sell fairly consistently. Like, they sell around 10 to 12,000 albums every comeback they have, which is, like, pretty good.
Yeah.
For, like, a D-tier K-pop group of, like, almost no popularity, so.
Yeah.
So they have a very dedicated fan
base.
Yeah.
They have a consistent, dedicated fan base.
Mm-hmm. I'll get to another instance of that later. But at least the fans that they do have, like, they're there. Like, I think at this point with KNK, with them having gone through so much and being, like, so non-relevant to the public, that any fans of them have to be, like, very dedicated at this point. Oh, yes, and so after Sun, Moon, and Star, here comes 2018, and we get to talk about our favorite YG survival show again.
Oh my... Okay, listeners. I have not read this script. and I never watched Mix 9. Why does that keep coming up, Kayla? Why can I never escape this show?
We can never escape this show. Like, I don't even know how many times we've talked about Mix 9 on this podcast already, but it's been too many.
It's like every episode, I think.
Too many. Like,
it keeps coming up.
It's so many.
Everybody was on that show.
Everybody. Literally everybody. KNK is the actual reason I started watching the show, by the way. So if you want to blame me for bringing up Mix 9 for every group, KNK is the reason I got into this show and suffered through it. So
I feel like no one knows how many people were on Mix 9 because no one watched it.
Mm-hmm.
You did. But,
I did.
No one else watched it, so no one can bring up the fact that, like, that's how all these idols know each other.
Mm-hmm.
You did, so that's the only reason you're the person piecing together this,
yes.
like, web of, well, they know each other because they're both on, because these two members were on Mix 9, and I'm like, okay,
Once you get through all of, like, the Mix 9 and, like, produced seasons and, like, the unit, and it's just, like, everybody just has a connection to somebody that you would never expect.
Exactly. Everyone knows each other. Everyone's friends. The K-pop idol life is just it's like a high school. Everyone knows each other somehow.
My favorite, just, like, bizarre combination of people together is the Produce Season 2 Right Round performance that has Joo Hakyeon of The Boys and also Hwanwoong of One Us and Hwaesung of N Flying, just all in that performance. And it's the most bizarre group of people to be together and, like, in a performance, but that just
it's amazing.
Exists. Yeah.
I've seen that performance thanks to you, and now my life has changed because
it's just
of it.
so weird.
My life is better. It's improved, Kayla. Thank you.
Yes, and so, Mix 9. So Yoojin and Jihoon, sadly did not pass the audition for Mix 9. So they did not get to go on the show. So only Heejun and Insong and Seungjun went on the show, but all three of them did, like, pretty well. None of them ranked consistently in the top 9. Insong started off in the top 9 debut group, and then Heejun and Insong consistently ranked really high. Seungjun ranked a little bit lower, and got eliminated a round early, due to a very upsetting situation that I don't even want to go into because it'll make me upset.
I don't know what this is.
I think it was the second or third round, I don't remember. But Seungjun was in a group that covered It's You by Super Junior, actually. Good song.
Oh, that's a great song.
There was one specific member of the group that was just incredibly problematic and, like, very untalented, and constantly, like, caused conflict in the group because he either wanted more parts or he wanted parts that he was just, like, unable to execute well, and the rest of the group was like, no, it was just like, no, because you can't do it. And a lot of the stuff he wanted to take was, like, Seungjun's parts, and Seungjun was about to just give it to him because he just didn't want the conflict anymore. But so when they did their live performance, he, like, screwed it up a lot because he, like, barely sang his own parts, and then, like, also, instead of lip singing, sang into the microphone when they were on, so it screwed up everyone else who actually had to sing the song at the time. And that entire group came in last place in that round, and all of them except for, like, one person got eliminated who was in that group.
Oh, that's sad.
And it was sad. And so Seungjun was in that group, so that he was, like, I think 4 spots away from being safe, so, which was sad. Heejun and Insong were in that Love in the Ice performance. That's, like, my favorite performance from a survival show ever. And they were in Paradise Lost, which was also another one of my favorite performances ever. And so I don't know how true this is, but I'm, like, in, like, KNK Twitter at the time, so I was, like, following, like, whatever the fans were doing on Twitter when Mix 9 was airing. And apparently the Korean fan base for them just decided to stop voting for them because once Seungjun got eliminated and realized that all 3 of them weren't going to make the group, they wanted just all of them to not make the group so they could go back to being their own group instead of having to deal with whatever bullshit YG was going to do with the debut group.
Little did they know.
Yep.
It didn't matter.
And it did not matter anyway. but their ranks fell a little bit after that anyway, so it could have been true. I don't know if that actually happened or not, but that's what I had heard. And so they got eliminated. All 3 of them were eliminated by the time the finale performances came around. So yes. So after Mix 9 was over, and that just sad show happened.
That show is a hot train wreck of a mess.
It really is just such a disaster. Everything about it. So right after that, they went on a really long hiatus because Yoojin left their group due to he got diagnosed with like a panic disorder, and so he just decided he didn't want to be an idol anymore. And so once they were all done with Mix 9, he left the group, and then the remaining 4 eventually left YNB Entertainment as a whole in search of a new company because YNB just did not have the resources or the money to support them as a group anymore. But
I mean, YNB is just not a good company.
It really is not. They're like barely holding on to anything because Bestie doesn't do things anymore. I think Bestie is just gone. And
yeah,
KNK
was
was
not officially disbanded, but
right.
Yeah, no, that's the only 2 artists they've ever had either. Yeah. So like they don't have anybody.
No, and now that KNK is gone, YNB is like essentially just not a company of anything anymore. So, the 4 of them who were left after Yoojin left the group are, like, I can tell that they are, like, just very, very good friends. Like, they definitely want to be idols, they want to make music together, and they want to promote as a group together. And so they left YB together, and then they added their friend Dongwon, who had already been friends with them for a good time because he had trained at FNC with Heejun and Insong. And they went on, I think it was almost a year by the time Mix 9 had ended and the time they had made their next comeback.
Yeah, I remember that when KNK announced that they were going to have a comeback at that time, a lot of people were like, oh, KNK, they're still a group.
Yeah, it was
one of those I was surprised.
I hadn't heard from them in so long. I thought they were just dead. Like, I heard that they were off, like, trying to find a new company, and I was like, well, that probably just didn't work out, and they're just gone. Like, that's it for them.
Mm-hmm. It's those, like, unclimactic K-pop stories where it's like, you don't get a disbandment, they just never have a comeback.
Mm-hmm. Which is, it's so sad. And I think it was, how long was it between... It was close to 2 years in between. One, they released Sun, Moon, and Star, and then had their actual first comeback with their new members after Mix 9. Like, that was just 2 years of no music for them.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, entirely of 2018 was taken over by Mix 9 and the disaster of a show that was.
Mm-hmm.
And so... It was bad.
Just a lot happened, and for the most part, the weird thing with KNK was that, like, a lot was happening, but also just nobody really... They were just not a group that was, like, super reported on, so it's just like, oh yeah, no. KNK.
They're just around, those, like,
yeah. Like, C-tier K-pop groups that just disappears.
Mm-hmm. Because that's just, like, a normal thing that happens in K-pop, is especially with these, like, lesser-known groups and, like, companies that don't, like... have anything. It's just that, like, you just won't hear from them for a while, and then either they'll just disappear without officially disbanded, or you just get a notice. It's like, hey, we're officially disbanding, and it's just done. But in 2019, they had an actual comeback now with Lonely Night first, and then Sunset later in the year. And
I remember Sunset gave them a little bit of popularity.
Because they have a really interesting choreography for Sunset, so I think that's what drew people into it.
And they were also shirtless.
But yes, that helps as well.
That did help a little bit. That was the little bit of, like, KNK popularity that sort of sprung up from that, but not really that much.
No, not really. And after that, just did a lot of nothing again for a while. But they did it, they are having a comeback, but they had to make Star the comeback. And so for people who aren't aware with what Make Star is, it's essentially like a Kickstarter for a K-pop group specifically. And it's just where fans can go to support the album. I make Star their album that's coming out. Yeah. And
essentially it takes about what $5,000 to like $6,000 to produce a K-pop album,
something like average. That. Yeah.
And that's how much so essentially the fans are raising all of the money to produce an album. That's essentially what a Make Star is. Mm-hmm.
And it's similar to like a Kickstarter or GoFundMe, where there's like different tiers of like stuff you can get from it, where you get like, I think the lowest tier is like you just get the album and it's signed and that's it. But then you can get like extra photo card things, or like a Polaroid, or you get like a video message from them or whatever, and you can pay however much money you want to support them. So back to the fact that we talked about where they have a small fan base, but they have a really dedicated small fan base. Their Kickstarter was or their Make Star for their comeback was apparently 100% funded within 10 minutes of opening.
That's a lot.
It's like, yeah.
And a lot of, like,
it was a lot.
If you look at Make Stars, like, they usually end up with, like, the full funding. But sometimes it's, like borderline that they don't. Sometimes it takes, like, the full amount of time to get all the funding. 10 minutes is, like, I think that they would have had a fan base where the company could have put in this money. But that's just me.
Oh, boy. So I'm looking at, the Make Star page right now. So when I went to fund the Make Star, it was at like something like 400% funded. It is currently 675% funded, which is $110,000.
Good Lord. That's so much money.
So that's how much money they got for their upcoming comeback.
Yeah, Make Stars are actually usually really good. Mm-hmm. Like, they usually make the money that the artist needs, because a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, I know, I want more from them. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I don't know, I think when a group has to start going to Make Star to get their funding, it kind of just shows how much the company wants to invest. Mm-hmm. Which is really not so much the popularity of the group, because I think KNK does have enough popularity where this isn't necessary. Mm-hmm.
Because there are definitely groups from companies who are like nothing, who can just they just like fund albums for like because of it. Yeah. But
a Make Star doesn't necessarily show the popularity of the group. It shows how much the company cares.
How many cares,
which it shows not a lot.
Honestly, I couldn't tell you what company KNK is actually under right now. They might just be, like, managing themselves for all I know. Oh, they're under 220 Entertainment.
Who is 220? Let's look up who
idea who that is.
220 Entertainment.
Never heard of them
220
in my life.
Entertainment is so much of a nothing company. They don't even have their own Wikipedia article.
That might as well just be the members like managing their own group at this point, which would make sense why they would have to Make Star their album. But
true.
I mean,
but still,
yeah. But they're just essentially just. They're either managing themselves, or they're at a company that just has like no money or resources or effort to put towards them and their comeback, which is a sad place to be. But I'd rather them be there and have to Make Star all of their albums, and their albums get 600% funding, than them to just not release music. So I'd much rather have that. But yeah, so that's really a history of them up to this point. They're having another comeback soon.
Yay!
We don't have an exact date for it, but it should be by the end of the year.
It's exciting. I think it's gonna be good, because none of KNK's music is bad.
It isn't. Like, all of the songs they've released, I genuinely like a lot. I own a lot of their physical albums. I already own a signed album from them.
You're getting another one, too.
I am getting another one, because I'm getting the Make Star one.
So, odd question. I don't think we did this for Unique. But Unique is all doing fine. I'm not concerned for Unique.
Unique is doing fine. Wang Yibo is like the most popular band in China.
Wang Yibo is doing it fine.
Yeah.
But what do we see for the future of KNK?
Yeah.
I think this is a history, and then you take the knowledge you learn, and then you apply it to the future,
Mm-hmm.
how do we see the rest of the KNK career going?
So I see this not going that well for them. Where I feel like, so what happens to 24K is that, and I see them going in a very similar direction.
Tease for a future episode of this series, our 24K
Oh yes,
episode.
we will definitely be making a 24K episode at some point. So this isn't as bad as 24K, because 24K had just, like, they won through, like, stupid amounts of members in their group.
So many members.
But
almost as bad as the Top Dog situation. Another tease for another
episode. Or Xeno T, whatever you would prefer to call them these days. But eventually what happened with 24K is that the members just got old enough that they had to go into the military, and then the group was just dead at that point. Because I don't think there's any hope of them trying to make music or have a comeback after someone gets out of the military with, like, as little popularity that they have. I think once someone has to go to the military, which is Sangjun, I think, who would have to go first. And he's going soon. Like, Sangjun has to go,
I think probably within
the next year or two, yeah. Because he's in 93, so yeah, within the next, like, 2 years. So I think once he has to go to the military, KNK is just, like, done as a group.
Oh, but that's really kind of what happens with these, like, C, D tier-ish boy groups. Like, boy groups have this tendency to last for 10 to 12 to, if you want to count Shinhwa, 28,000 years. They were here at the dawn of time. They'll be here when the sun explodes. Just constants. But that really only happens when you have that dedicated, loyal fan base that also sells enough to be popular. And a lot of boy groups don't ever have an official disbandment. They just kind of fizzle out.
Yeah.
And that's really sad, but
that's just kind of what happens. But
that's just
K-pop
what happens.
In particular, with there being, like, now there's, like, stupid amounts of debuted groups a year. Like, let's, like, take this year, for example. We just made an episode.
We have a full episode, about 8 of them.
With 8 groups in it. There was another, like, 5 we didn't even talk about on that list in that episode. And there's, like, another 4 coming out by the end of the year. So.
Oh, good lord. We just got news. We're recording this, like, at the beginning of September. Lord knows when this comes out. And it's like, we just got announcements for, like, 5 debuts. And we're like, what is happening?
Are we going to have to do a 2020 K-pop debuts part 2?
I think we might have to, because we're just, like, overwhelmed with debuts
because
now.
They're, like, actual, like,
companies.
Because it's Woollim, FNC, and Maru are all debuting groups, like, within, like, a month of each other. Not even. Like, weeks, probably, of each other.
No, we're gonna have another Pentagon SF9 situation where it's just gonna be 2 groups debut the same week. Another very, very One Us where they debut the same day
debut, yeah.
Couple hours apart. Like, that's where we're at. So at some point there are gonna be groups that get buried, and it's groups like KNK that get buried.
Yes,
it's good groups that are producing quality music. They're not untalented. It's just you're overwhelmed with the amount of groups you're trying to keep up with. And one of them drops.
And it's sad, but it's, like, only the ones from these, like, bigger, more notable companies are really
the
groups that survive. Or even... Yeah. And it's, like, not even... Because some of these groups from, like, bigger companies don't even do that well these days with just how many groups are out. Yeah. But it's, like, for a group from a small,
like, when you say
unknown
bigger
company to be...
We don't...
Like, yeah.
When we say bigger companies, we don't even mean, like, the JYPs and the YGs. We're talking, like, FNC and Cube and Maro. Is it Maro?
Maru, yeah.
Maru.
And Woollim,
all those
like,
companies,
all of them.
Or in Woollim, who are, like, they're not, like, when you retrospect look at K-pop companies, they aren't what you think of when you think of big company. But they're way better than Y&B and 220 Entertainment.
Yeah.
Like, so many K-pop groups debut with, like, these no-name companies. And that's who, like, then they just disappear into the ether.
Yeah.
Because, like, an FNC group, like, I think that they could fail. They could very easily fail.
Easily they could fail.
Easily they could fail.
The FNC group in particular, I can see easily failing.
Especially, but, like...
Because FNC's been a hot mess lately.
Yeah. Alright, bad example. A cube group. I can see a cube group failing, and failing badly.
Mm-hmm.
But do I trust them to be given a chance to survive?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll give them 2 to 3 comebacks before they officially are like, well, this isn't gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
Like a no-name Nugu group from a company that has nobody else, if their first comeback doesn't do well, bye.
Because I'm just thinking of this year, because
we have like 5 of them this year that disbanded.
I'm thinking of like there's a chance, like the chance DKB is probably just gonna fade into obscurity because
they'll be fine.
But it's like they're from they're from like a nobody company, and they're probably in the same spot that KNK was, where they debuted early, and so there was as many competition like other groups that debuted at the time. But now we're at the end of the year. And we've got, like, 3 notable companies debuting groups now, and it's like, well...
Yeah.
How well are they gonna be able to hold up with, like, all of these other, like, groups that are debuting?
MCND holds out.
Because I think DKB is probably the group from the least notable company that we talked about. Or Elast.
We did talk about Elast.
Elast, too, yeah. They're probably... The 2 of them are probably not in a good spot anymore in K-pop.
But, like, I think that they have time.
They do.
I think that they have
I think they have like a year.
You give them a year, you try it out, you see what happens, and like very few companies can keep a dying group alive just through like the sheer force of will. And a lot of those are just big, massive companies that just keep pumping money into something until it works. And I think that the unfortunate thing and the reason we do this show is to just highlight groups that are like, you don't talk about them. No one in K-pop talks about them because K-pop is such a fast-moving genre of what's the new thing, and then you just forget that that group even exists. We've had a couple of those where we're, like, getting debuts announced that we're like, they're still together?
Yeah.
I thought that they disbanded.
We have a constant conversation about Alphabet, and, like, every time we hear about that, we're just like, oh, Alphabet's still around?
Alphabet? Who knew? Alphabet's been around for a very long time.
They really have.
Like, they're, like, surprisingly old, and, like, have surprisingly been doing this for a very long time. I'm very happy for Alphabet.
That they're still going,
They're living their best lives.
They really are.
So that was our episode on the history of KNK.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had a good discussion about the larger K-pop world in general as well.
We did.
It kind of went off at the end, but I think we had fun.
I think it's relevant because it's, like... And that's just kind of... KNK is kind of like a... It's kind of an example of, like, what happens to groups that really aren't from these bigger companies and just aren't given, you know, the money or a chance ever because there's just so much going on in K-pop. And it's not uncommon that this happens to groups either, but it's just, like, it's just bound to happen with the nature of K-pop, so... But it doesn't mean that they're not good. Because I like them a lot.
Check them out. Check them out. They're good. I like them.
Check out their new comeback. Whenever that's going to happen. Soon, hopefully.
If not, check out Sunset. They look
Sunset or Lonely Night. Knock is constantly on like my list of favorite K-pop songs ever. So, would recommend all of their songs. But thank you for watching this episode. I don't know where you're listening to this, but we are now on Spotify, finally.
Yay!
It took us long enough, but we are now on Spotify. So we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're essentially on all the podcasting places now, which is nice.
And if you're on the podcast sites, go to YouTube. We have fun bonus videos.
We do. We upload all of our episodes onto YouTube, and we make fun clip compilation videos, like our favorite K-pop songs, our favorite groups, choreographies. Ho Anthems was a fun video that we put out recently.
I love our Ho Anthems video. Check out our Ho Anthems video. I'm very proud of that.
We also have a Twitter, and we now have a K-pop collection Instagram that the 5 of us collectively share that we will hopefully be posting on more soon.
I finally got my unique album, guys. Thank you.
Yes.
Yay.
Yay.
I own the jewel. It's the jewel of my collection.
So if anyone was ever going to offer Sammi a deal on a unique album that we mentioned in the unique episode.
I can take a second one. It's fine.
We do not need it anymore.
Get more money from someone else. It's fine. That album's worth of so much money.
It really is. It's worth a lot of money. But anyways, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.